There aren't many good first-person shooters that are telling very compelling story anymore. Thankfully, in the last decade, we had plenty. And one of the most memorable ones were Metro series. And yes, in this series of videos, we're going to be reviewing every single Metro entry in Metro Trilogy. And we're gonna start with Metro 2033 and decide whether it is worth it to buy right now or not. So without further ado, let's just get it started. And as always, as with every single one of our videos, I'm going to be giving you the answer right away. And today we're going to be touching Metro 2033 Redux, which was kind of like a remake or remaster or whatever you want to call it, version that came out in 2014. So is it worth it? Yes, despite being pretty short experience, it is pretty memorable and very interesting and very atmospheric setting. However, mechanically it is kinda dated, and if you're used to very modern shooters, this shooter is kinda like on a border between old school and the new school shooters, or whatever you want to call it. So for some, the gameplay mechanics might be a bit outdated, but overall experience and very low price makes it pretty worth it, especially if you're gonna continue with the Metro Last Light and then with Metro Exodus. But let's get into the details. What even is Metro 2033? Metro 2033 is post-apocalyptic first-person survival shooter, which takes place in a year, well, 2033. The entire game takes place in Moscow, 20 years after, well, nuclear war. So in this world in 2013, the nuclear apocalypse happened and everything has gone to, well, to hell, basically. World is destroyed, and now people in Moscow are, well, living under cover of the Moscow Metro, which is a very expensive set of tunnels and stations. There are multiple different factions controlling different stations, and all the stations are connected with each other through different tunnels, well, like a regular subway. You are playing as Artyom, just a regular soldier in this world, and you are bearing the witness of attack of Dark Ones. Dark Ones are mutated creatures called, in the game scientifically called Homo novus, which is basically a new humans. These are telepathic creatures that are making people go insane and kill each other. And your goal is to end the Dark One threat. This is the basic premise, but overall the game has quite a lot of things to do. Gameplay wise, it's literal first-person shooter, and while playing the game you can have a very different experience based on what type of difficulty level you're playing. If you're playing on standard difficulties, it's just a regular shooter. You're seeing enemies, you're shooting at enemies. But on higher difficulties, it's becoming much more difficult, because in here the most valuable resource are bullets, and military ammunition is actually used as a currency, as literal money. You also have regular bullets that you will be using into your day-to-day combat, but the combat bullets are, well, dealing much more damage, but they're also much more valuable. So you have to be very careful on how you use these bullets. And on higher difficulties, you are encountering much less bullets, and it takes much more to kill enemies, so it's better for you to play as stealth. And you also have a ranger mode, which allows you to kill enemies in basically 1 to 2 shots, but you also will die in 1 to 2 shots as well, making it very realistic experience if you want to experience this. You have kind of like an average selection of weapons, starting from your rifles, the submachine guns. You also have your AK assault rifles, you have your pistols, you have your shotguns, and the majority of the weapons have some kind of attachment system, well, attached to it. I won't lie, it's nothing special, it's nothing amazing, because the original game came more than a decade ago, and yes, weirdly enough, mechanically wise, the shooting mechanically wise, it's closer to, well, Half-Life than it is to Call of Duty. At least what it felt for me. Story-wise, your goal is kind of like a travel from station to station. I won't be spoiling why you are traveling like that. On the way from station to station, you will be encountering either different mutated enemies, which can be giant mutated creatures, or different people. And usually against people, you can use stealth and just defeat them one by one stealthily, or you can just go guns blazing if you have a lot of bullets and if you're not afraid to die over and over again. I won't lie, enemy AI is kinda dumb and it's not that difficult to outmaneuver them, but on higher difficulty it's becoming pretty difficult to fight against them, because they can kill you usually in 1 to 2 bullets, especially in a ranger mode. Graphically, even the game was remastered when with this Redux version. It still looks kind of like dated. Yes, the textures look more or less high resolution, but the polygons, the models themselves are pretty old and low res, and this dead stares of NPCs is simply difficult to overlook. Yeah, it's pretty dated and pretty old. But if you don't mind that, it looks pretty okay in my opinion, because the atmosphere of the game is insane. In a Metro, you feel very claustrophobic, and on a surface which is plagued with mutants and with the nuclear winter, it feels very, well, hopeless, and the atmosphere in the game is insanely good. But is it a great game? Well, it is, however, with one very glaring and big issue. Game is very short, at least in the modern standard, or even to the time standard. It will take you around 10 hours at max to complete the game, and maybe you can just go through it in 8 hours. Yes, game is not very long, and because there are not a lot of branching storylines, you don't really want to through the game over again, because yeah, you're gonna go through the same thing over again. So yeah, this game is practically giving you 10 hours, maybe full stretch through the ranger mode and just do everything possible. Maybe you can stretch it to maybe to 20 hours. So yeah, even the completionist will take you 20-25 hours. So yeah, it's not very long game. Game does have two endings, one bad and one good ending, in which bad ending is actually the canon ending, which will take over into the Metro Last Light. But yeah, you kind of have an option of like two endings, but that's practically all the options that you have. It's not that many. Length can be forgiven for the right price. So how much the game will actually cost you. So game is available on Steam for the base price of $19.99 for tier 1 countries and $12.59 for tier 2 countries, and can go as low as $3.99 for tier 1 countries and $2.51 for tier 2 countries. So as you can see, because the game is pretty old, the game has pretty deep sales, up to 80%, and yes, sales are happening pretty often, and I'm pretty sure you might be here because of the sales. So is it worth it for $4? Yes, absolutely. This is an amazing experience. Even if it's just 10 hours, it's $4 and it's 100% worth it for this price. And even if you'll go for full $20 price, in my opinion, it is actually kind of worth it, because it is very fresh and different look into post-apocalyptic settings. It's not really your typical Fallout game. It looks completely different, and if you are not familiar with this setting, this Moscow Metro setting, this will be a pretty amazing experience for you. And one thing that was pretty interesting for me was localization. I actually played this game half of this game with the English localization, and another half of the game I played in original Russian localization with the English subtitles. And being able to speak perfectly well on both languages, I can safely say that Russian localization is much better, because the English translation is not that great. Even by seeing the subtitles, there are a lot of things in dialogue lost in translation or translated completely different, which is not that great. Plus, the Russian localization sounds much better. So if you want a real authentic experience of the Moscow Metro, you need to play it with the Russian voice acting and English subtitles. Or do whatever you want. It really doesn't take away anything from the gameplay, just from the world building. So overall, Metro 2033 is a great game, but a little bit dated, which might be a turnoff for many of you. It was not for me though, because I'm used to playing older games. And if you are as well, it's gonna be quite a lot of fun and very atmospheric survival experience. And yeah, if you want to experience game to its fullest, play on a higher difficulties, or even better, play it on Ranger mode, because yeah, this is absolutely worth it, because Ranger mode is how game is meant to be played. Well, this will be it for today. Thanks for being here with me. Like the video if you like it, subscribe for more videos like this one, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. See ya.